And we're live now.
Hi, so my name's George and I'm a core developer at Mattermost. And in this brown bag, we're going to go through how to set up a developer environment and going on from that, how to make a pull request with patching it. So first of all, we've got, if we go to the Mattermost docs website, docs.mattermost.com, we can make a start from there. And we've got various different manuals on here. And the one we want to look at is the developer's guide. So there's various documentation here. It's well worth a read through if you're hacking on Mattermost, although you don't need to look at it all at once immediately. Where we're going to start is looking at the developer machine setup. And on this occasion, I'm running on Ubuntu, so I'm going to follow the instructions for that. So first thing we need to do in order to get set up is to install Docker. Now you can install Docker from your distribution's repos if you're on Linux, but particularly if you're on a slightly older distribution version, you might not have a up-to-date enough version. This applies for Docker and for Go and for Node.js because they're quite fast-moving pieces of software, and we tend to need relatively recent versions. So here we've got the links to the official Docker installation for Ubuntu. So we're just going to run through that quickly now. So the first thing to do, commands nicely provided here, run a quick update. Commands I'm running over in the window on the left in the terminal there. So just doing a update of the package sources and then run this one to install some suggested prerequisites for Docker. So while that's running, and then if we go on to the main meat of the instructions here to install Docker. So what they're recommending is that you set up the Docker organization's apt repository to install your packages from. And you can do that copying the commands here. So first of all, adding a couple more prerequisites. They're already installed, so we don't need to do that. And then we can fetch the GPG key that's used to sign the Docker packages with this command. And then importantly, in the next step, check that we did actually fetch the one we meant to fetch. So we can see 5811, etc. It matches the one over here in the instructions. So now we add the apt repository for Docker itself. You can see in the command here, it's set up for Ubuntu specifically, and it automatically guesses which version you're on and adds the right repository. So we'll do that. And then now we've added a new repository, just update them again for apt. And finally, when that's done, we get on to actually installing the Docker package. Yeah, so I'll leave that to get on. There's various notices here. If you're on a production system, you want to use a specific version, that kind of thing. But this is just our development system, so the latest's fine. So in a minute, that'll be installed, and we can just test that it worked with this Docker run hello world. We have to run it at root at the moment. We'll come on to how to deal with that in a minute. So this installs a simple Docker image and runs it. And if it works, you see over here on the left, hello from Docker. This message means your installation is working correctly. So that's great. And then just before we call it a day with that, there's one more thing we've got to do, which is post-install installation steps for Linux. And the reason we want to do this is because we can add our user to the group for Docker. Because without doing that, we have to use sudo every time we want to run the Docker thing. Now, after doing this sudo usermod ag docker command, you actually need to log out and log back in again. But I've already done that in advance, so we don't need to do that now. So this should work. There we go. It still works, but without the sudo. So now we can run Docker as a regular user. So back to the Mattermost developer setup instructions. The next thing we need to do is, because Mattermost uses Docker to manage the dependencies when you're a developer. So you don't need to install your own MySQL database or your own Postgres database and so on. The make file just uses Docker to run these automatically for you and keep them self-contained and not make a mess of your system. So it assumes that the host name Docker host will access the well, it'll be able to reach the local host with the Docker containers running on it. So we need to just set that up in your hosts file. So if you sudo vim etc hosts, and here we've got 127.0.0.1 pointing to localhost, and we'll add another as in step 2 of the instructions, and then we so now we need to make sure we've got the basic compiler and things installed, which on Ubuntu is a package called, oh, I forgot to run that as sudo. There we go. Try that. I will type it in. Go apt get. So that's already installed, so that's fine. So next we need Go, and we generally on Mattermost are one minor version behind with Go. So Go 1.7 is the current version, and we tend to develop against Go 1.6 at the moment. And when 1.8 comes out, we'll probably move on to 1.7. So similar to with Docker, we're going to install this from the official source, which is the Go website here. So we want Go 1.6.4 as the latest 1.6 version. We'll click on that there. That should start the download. There we go. I will save that. And while that's running, you can see we've got to do two things. We've got this tar command to install it to user local, and then we just need to put this export into our bashrc file. Into our profile file, so that we can the binary can be found, the Go binary can be found when we run it later. So that's finished downloading. So just going to change into the downloads folder, and then we'll run. This needs to be run sudo again, so it can install. And that's running, and that's done. So Go is now installed in user local. So I'm just going to add this to the profile. So vim and down the end here, we'll just put that in. Okay, so now we've got Go installed, and we'll just check that works by typing in Go, and not there. We need to do environment right now. Go, there we go, it's found Go. So what's the next step? It's time to set up our folder structure for our Go project, because Mattermost is the server part of Mattermost is a Go project. So let's follow these instructions. Make dir Go change in. If I do that, so we've made a Go home Go folder. Then we need to put these variables into our bashrc so that they're there ready for use. So vim.rc, we'll go again, we'll add this after the stuff that's been put there already by Ubuntu by default. Paste these lines in. If you want to change the folder you're putting your Mattermost, your Go and Mattermost development in, that's fine. You just need to remember to also set the Go path appropriately so that Go can find all the dependencies and the various places where it puts stuff. So that's done. Save and exit that, and then we just source that to load it again. There we go. We'll skip the optional step putting the Go route in for now, but you can do that if you want. So the final dependency we need is Node.js. So this one probably the easiest to install. We've got one of these magic curl scripts that we can run that puts everything in place. So we'll do that. And then we install the package Node.js. Now, while that's running, we'd go on to step 7. So what you would do now is you go to the GitHub repository and click fork up the top here, but I've actually already got a fork, so I'm going to use that one. So let's change directory into our, oops, wrong command there. Change directory into our Go folder, make the directory we're going to clone Mattermost into, change into that directory, and then git clone slash Grundleborg, that's my handle, platform dot. Now that's cloning. That'll take a minute or two to clone. So this is normally around the time when I would say start thinking about what you're going to hack on, because there's very helpfully on the Mattermost platform repo, if you take a look at the issues tab, you can see various help wanted issues. And these are issues where it's a specific isolated feature or bug that needs fixing, that we're accepting pull requests against the repository for. And they're categorized based on their difficulty, which I will show you in a moment because it's finished cloning. So let's change into the platform directory. And now everything is ready. So if we type make run, should, all things being successful, it should launch, build and launch Mattermost on our local machine. So it's pulling various Docker images for the databases and things now because they haven't been checked out here, cloned here before. And that will take quite a while. So let's go back to the original instructions. So back to the developer guide. So we're doing machine setup and we're basically done with that now. Once this is finally finished, we'll be ready to go. So let's go to choosing a ticket. So you can choose a ticket from the help wanted GitHub issues or from the APR ticket list. And if you have a look at the issues on GitHub, we can see various help wanted ones here, and we can also filter them. They've core team members have assigned difficulty levels to them based on how experienced you would need to be with the language and how well you'd need to know the code base in order to take them on. So given this is a first contribution, we probably want to pick difficulty introductory just to have something reasonably self-contained to get familiar with the code base. So we can see a list of the tickets here. And if you click on one, let's say we're going to pick that one, you can see there's a description of the ticket and what needs doing, and also some links to the Jira ticket. We use Jira as our internal tool for sprint planning and so on. So most tickets have a duplicate in there, but there's no need to really use that. You can just work on the GitHub one if you want. And also links to the Mattermost contributors channel, which is a great place to go if you want to get any help at all, or you want to check how to do something or anything like that. So I'm not going to fix this ticket right now, but I have got another ticket that I worked on before. So let's say I've chosen my ticket. I've said, I'm going to work on this ticket. I'm going to fix the code. So we do various coding here when the make run has finished. And then eventually I push my branch. So my branch is called PLT 4858 because it's based on the ticket with that name. And I push that to my fork, and GitHub's helpfully popped this up saying, do you want to compare and make a pull request? So I'm going to hit compare and pull request, and it's created a pull request for me. So first of all, the change. So this was a change to some permissions code in the Golang server that there was a bug with. So I fixed the bug here, fairly minor change. And now I'm going to fill this in. And you can see we've got the commit message is already filled in up there for the title. And then we've got a template here to fill in. So there's the original stuff I wrote in the commit message. So I'm going to move that down into this section called summary so that it's there to explain what it is. And I'm also going to copy this across just to make it extra easy for someone who's reviewing the pull request. And so please make sure you've read the pull request contribution guide section of our code contribution guidelines. Let's just go and have a look at that, just check what's in there. So preparing a pull request, first thing you've got to do, sign the contributor license agreement. So we can do that over here. Now, CLAs are a fairly standard thing for many open source projects. It's just to make sure that you are able, you're not infringing on anyone else's copyright by contributing and so on. So there's the agreement here and all these details, and you can then sign it. And once you've done that, you're ready to make a pull request. And then we've chosen the ticket. It was a help wanted ticket. We've checked that our code follows the style guide. There's no need for a unit test here because it's already covered by existing ones. No new strings added, so we don't need to add them to the internationalization. Incidentally, if you want to know more about that, there's another brown bag from a few weeks ago, which you can see on our YouTube channel, which talks about the localization translation infrastructure. And so on. UX, fine. It's a server-side change, so there's not much there. And so on. So we've gone through the preparing a pull request list. So let's get back to our, where was it? Here we go, the pull request we're opening. So we can delete this stuff because it's just there to tell us what we need to fill in. So we've got our summary with the description from the commit message, and you can write a bit more there if you want. We need a link to the GitHub issue. Now, I am not sure offhand what that one is. Let's just find. Hang on. I'm going to borrow a link from one of these to get the right one. Copy link location, but it's actually 4858. There we go. So we've got our link to the ticket. You can just use the GitHub ticket number, #4858 if you want to reference a GitHub ticket. This one doesn't actually have a corresponding GitHub ticket. And then we've got a checklist here just to make sure that nothing important's been forgotten, because it's very easy to forget to add new strings to the localization files and that kind of thing. So added or updated unit tests, that's not applicable here. Added API documentation, no new APIs. No new APIs, no enterprise changes, no UI changes, no localization changes. However, it does touch critical sections of the code because I'm fixing a bug with permissions. So I'm going to tick that box by putting an X in it there, just so that the reviewers realize that this, this could have implications if it's got a bug in it. So they should review it extra carefully. And now I'm going to create a pull request. So there we go. I've made my pull request, and then someone from the core team or from the product managers will come along and add various labels to it. It'll get, if it needs to, it'll get reviewed by a product manager, and then it'll get reviewed by 2 developers, at which point, if it's all perfect, it'll be merged. If anyone runs into any issues with it, then they'll probably comment asking for changes or discussing anything they're not quite clear about. And then, all being well, it'll get merged and there'll be a shiny mug on its way to you in the post. And hopefully, or very nearly, we've finished our first build of the server. It doesn't normally take anywhere near this long. It's just because this is the first one, so it's installing all the node dependencies and all the Docker images and so on. So it does take quite a long time just on this first run. So this is the final bit of it. So in 30 seconds or so, I should be able to show you it working. If you go back to the developer's guide, which I've got open here, you can see the process through which a pull request goes and the managing of it once it's open, and review process and all that is all documented here. So if you want to know anything about how it works, you can find it all in great detail on here. And if you're not someone running Ubuntu, the setup instructions are quite similar, but they're different. And we have them here for Mac OS X, for Ubuntu, but broadly applicable to any apt-based Linux. And we've got them for Arch Linux, Windows. I actually develop on OpenSUSE myself, and it's, you know, aside from swapping apt for Zypper, it's pretty much the same thing as the Ubuntu instructions. It's relatively easy to set up there. And we've got lots of other help here for development type things. So particular build errors that people tend to run into, issues that sometimes occur with Docker. There's a lot of stuff here. And then we also have some documentation talking about the workflow that people use and the documentation of the various make commands. So I've done make run here just to build everything and start it. There are various other ones. So when you do make run, when this finally finishes, there's a watcher for changes to the JavaScript. So if you change anything in the web client, the web app, it'll rebuild immediately and be ready to go. If you change anything in the server code, what you need to do then is run make restart server, and that'll recompile the server and replace the currently running one, and so on. There are various other things as well in there. You can see most of them here. And we also have a style guide here, which is useful if you run into issues with the style checks not passing. And finally, I think it's our moment to see the server we've set up on locally running. So there we go, it's ready. So if we go to localhost :8065, here it comes, our freshly compiled Mattermost instance. So I'm going to just sign up account there. It's a team. And if you've been on pre-release or used Mattermost anywhere else, that should look very familiar now. We've got it running entirely locally. You can see the logs, the server logs appearing over here. And now let's say we've changed the code a bit and we want to restart the server and recompile it. We can type here, we can type make restart, and that has stopped the existing running server. It's restarting it, and you can see the yellow box, the server's disappeared. In a moment it'll be back, and that box will go white again once it can connect once more. And as well as doing that, we can also, before we submitted our pull request, there are two other things we would do locally. The first thing we would do is run make test, which runs all the tests. I'm not going to do that now because it takes quite a long time, but we have a continuous integration server that runs them when you make a pull request, so nothing gets merged until all the tests pass. The other thing that's a lot quicker to run, and also important because stuff won't be merged until this is fixed, is the style check. So we can do make check style, which runs ESLint over all of the JavaScript client-side stuff and runs Go format over the server-side Golang code, makes sure that's all right. So once we've done that, we would add our commit, push it to GitHub, and then we're right back where we were before when I showed you how to make the pull request. So there we go. We've set up the machine, installed a Mattermost development environment, got our local Mattermost instance up and running, and seen how to make a pull request once you've fixed a bug or added a new feature. Okay, thanks very much. That's all.